Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers. This is Tom LeNoble, and it's great to have you with me for another episode of Opening Pathways here in our second season. And today I have Raphael Rosen with me, who is the CEO and co-founder of Centinel. Raphael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
I'm thrilled to have you. I've been looking forward to our talk today. So I would love for you to tell the viewers a little about your company, a little bit about what you're doing, but most importantly, what I really want to know is what sparked your idea to get it started.
Yeah, so Sentinel, for 15 years, we partner with real estate landlords, so owners of office buildings, medical office buildings, and we solve what's called the landlord-tenant split incentive. And we make it possible for landlords and tenants to both benefit by reducing operating costs. In particular, for us, what we care about is utility consumption, so pollution, energy consumption. But we've developed a way for landlords make millions of dollars directly every single month because we pay them millions of dollars every month for reducing energy consumption. So I've been lucky to do that for 15 years now with my co-founder, Brendan.
Well, it sounds like it's something that you, from our prior conversation, and I can tell that you were passionate about it. So, what was the moment that you knew this is my path?
Hmm. So I've been interested in the environment ever since I was a very little kid. I spent a lot of time in Yosemite National Park and other national parks growing up. And the overwhelming sense that this majesty from nature was here only because people didn't destroy it. Or as John Muir said, a lot of these trees were saved from earthquakes and floods and thunderstorms, but couldn't be saved from fools. So trying to protect the natural environment from human beings was always high in my mind. And then I got really interested in energy in particular because energy is such a huge part of environmental destruction, as well as making our lives so convenient and wonderful. So finding ways to make sure everyone has the energy they need to make us productive and healthy without harming the environment became a real subject of fascination for me ever since I was little.
Yeah, I love this. I grew up spending a lot of time in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park with my family, and I went back there a few years ago to visit a friend in Asheville, and decided I needed to go visit that park again. It was in my adult eyes looked very different than my child eyes, but it still was just as moving. And of course, being in California, I spend a lot of time in Muir Woods in that area, and cherish my walks in parks here on Maui, where I am today. I love going and walking and being in nature, and I hope we always remember to protect it. So thank you for the work that you're doing towards that. I found that people end up in these roles and these things that we do as adults, that something happened that generated that from their early days. So I'm curious, who in your early days, who were the role models? Who was it that sparked in you this desire, in your case, to look at how we save the parks and nature and also how we use energy? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I'd say it certainly started in huge part with my father, who spent 53 years working on developing clean fusion power. He works at Lawrence Livermore National Lab for the Department of Energy, so he's been a pioneer of fusion research from the time it was thought impossible till a few years ago when they finally successfully achieved energy gain. So I've been fascinated by energy and physics since I was little, so he's been an enormous part of that origin for me. And then the second person is my co-founder, Brendan Milstein, who I've known since we were in kindergarten together and we grew up together. And he was my physics lab partner in college. And most of the ideas that we would dream up in the basement of this dank, really sad basement where we do all our problem sets together, where the letters were falling off the door. But there was an old-fashioned chalkboard in there, and we'd solve lots of problems and we'd dream up different energy solutions together. And his positivity and enthusiasm for making the world a better place, especially focused on energy, also very much was infectious for me.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens in garages and small basement apartments, isn't it?
Yeah.
Today, and what we've seen happen out of those things. So tell me this. Have you ever doubted your vision?
Oh, fun question. Uh, I want to say yes, but I'm struggling to think of an example of it. I'm pretty stubborn. I think you have to be pretty stubborn to start anything and see it through, especially if you're working on a solution for a sector that's not opposed to change, but is totally indifferent to it. So there have been plenty of times where it felt too hard to bother going on, but I kept going on anyway. And I'm very grateful that I did. But no, a vision where people use energy sustainably and make a lot more money doing it, that's not a hard vision to stick with. And
Yeah, I think
we
so.
realize that in many ways the customers we've worked with, and you see it happening all over the world. So no, I think it's a very realistic vision, and it's very, very hard to bring about at the same time.
Yes, yes. So tell me, I'd like to jump into leadership and maybe your leadership style. And was there something that was pivotal that created your leadership style? Tell us about your leadership style.
Yeah. Um, Simply stated, always leading by example. There's nothing that I would ever want anyone to do that I wouldn't do myself. And I think that started from a young age. I was raised in a religious home, reading lots of Bible stories, and certainly Moses is like the par excellence leader, the person who's described as the humblest person in the world. That was held up to me from a young age, as that's the way to be a leader. Like you're self-effacing, your success is purely because you're there to serve other people and accomplish a mission. And that has always resonated with me. I've never been interested in doing anything that didn't make sense to me. And so I've always assumed the rest of humanity, that no one wants to do anything if it doesn't make sense to them. And so I don't ever think of myself as a follower, and I think of everyone as a leader themselves, and we lead ourselves on whatever path resonates with us, and that's very fun and very hard and very liberating.
And how does Raphael balance being a leader and still being a learner?
Hmm. Yeah, I think learning is a very strong instinct for me. Every day, if I'm not learning something, my mind will force me to go learn something because it's constantly trying to find new things to learn. And because I always put front and center of every day, making sure I'm living a happy, fulfilled life. I'm always going to have those opportunities to say, well, I didn't learn anything today, so I better go spend some time learning something. Uh,
Yes.
and I think how that ties to leadership is the same principle of right, leaders lead. They say, this is the way that I'm going that way. And so when I think of something, missed opportunity to learn, I have a feedback loop and say, okay, well, tomorrow I need to make sure to go learn that thing.
Yeah, I like this idea. I think learning and leading are an organic process. They're never fixed. Hopefully, we keep learning. I hope I'm learning all the way to the last breath. So, thinking back to the early days of your business, what did you learn about trust?
Hmm. Having a co-founder whom you trust is invaluable, and I've seen so many partnerships fall apart. And my co-founder and I are extremely fortunate to have a deep bed of trust going back to when we were 5 years old together. And we also work really hard at it. Like any marriage, which effectively it is when it's a business partnership. It's slightly lower stakes, but it's enormous numbers of hours. We put a lot of time into our relationship, and we've been through lots of ups and downs together. And the business has succeeded wildly and failed miserably, and like both of those are true, and we have to deal with that all the time in our relationships to each other, relationship to the business. So we spend a lot of time talking to each other and being very direct with each other and learning how to manage each other's styles, and that has led to an amazing partnership for 15 years.
Amazing. So, we live in a day where technology seems to be racing ahead, although I've seen enough days it seemed like to be racing all along. And my observation is it sort of builds on itself. One thing happens. I remember when the first fax was done and I was watching it and we all thought it was magic. And then email changed our lives and then email changed our lives, if you know what I mean. And the evolution of the internet and so many things. And now we have AI, which, it's got mixed people feel mixed things about it, but it's obviously not going away and is part of our life and is going to be, I think we don't even know what it's going to be yet as we move forward. But this sort of technology that's moving ahead and has to be balanced somehow with sustainability, how we keep the lights on at the same time. How do you and your company balance new innovation with technology as well as keeping the lights on?
Yeah, I always focus on value. If we can use AI to get value for us, for our customers, for the planet, we want to go explore that. We're never going to use AI just because it sounds cool. Yeah, and so we've been using AI more or less for 12 or 13 years as a company in terms of machine learning and different neural networks and other things we've used on our own data. Yeah, so like the technology itself, even with the advent of large language models, doesn't mystify me in any way, but it delights me. It delights me when we can find ways to use it to make our our endeavor way more successful, to make our customers way more successful. Yeah, so always looking for value, always encouraging people to explore, to your leadership and learning. Just playing around with something and seeing what it can do is leadership and is learning, and encourage everyone at the company to do that. And I actually see a lot of companies encouraging people to just play around with AI and find usefulness in it. And that makes me happy. Let people discover. And we'll find lots of good uses and we can ignore the rest.
Yes, isn't that true? I know I've witnessed a lot of technology where we're in these periods of this time, and then it seems to fall into a fashion of there's eventually only a few left. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I interview a lot of tech CEOs and founders that are focused on AI, and I'm blown away at some of the applications that we're seeing of how it's being used. It's fascinating to me. Tell me, how do you know when to pivot or push through?
Yeah. Um, I never know when to pivot or push through. Yeah, but how I make a decision whether to pivot or push through, I'd say, is largely just the benefit of having made lots of mistakes, and the you know bad judgment, or rather good judgment comes from bad judgment, and having seen lots of different scenarios play out. So there are many times in my professional career where I wished I would have pivoted and played around more. And there are other times where, probably wish would have stayed the course more. At this point, it feels very straightforward to look at what's the most recent set of data that we're seeing, compare that to all the other data sets that are already in my head from what's failed and what has succeeded, and make a decision about where to pivot. Um, so we pivot very frequently, I would say in many ways, but the things that work, yeah, we leave those things alone.
Yes, yes. So tell me this. I'm interested to know about your personal values and how that affects you in your company. What are your personal values?
Yeah, I mean, my life's mission is, and as far as I can remember, always has been to just improve kindness and the way that people treat each other on Earth. That is my overwhelming priority, and I'm very, very grateful to have had parents who just lived that way, and they were always treating people with kindness, and they were always trying to serve others. And that is an enormous luxury to get to have, to put at the center of your life, because I've never had to worry about food or shelter or warmth or any of those things in a meaningful deprivation. And so I've been able to have the basics and therefore focus on how to help others. So the way I live those values is to try to treat people the way I'd want to be treated, and live that golden rule and try to see the best in people. And one area I'm particularly proud of is just watching's a weird word, but observing my listening skills get a lot better over
Yes,
time. And to truly, people who truly listen, like yourself, it's just a pleasure to be around people who listen really deeply and accept what you have to say for what it is, and don't try to insert their viewpoints into what you believe. So I aspire to be that, and to give everyone the space they need to be the best they can. And if I can add one quick anecdote there, then
please.
I'll add, Socrates, when he would wander around Athens and engage people in debate, he'd often ask him, as we all know, very challenging questions. But he saw himself, he was the son of a midwife, and he saw himself as the midwife to truth. And his goal was, there's a truth inside each person. How do I bring forth that truth from other people? And I just think that's a beautiful way to live. Everyone has amazing truths, their
Yes.
personal stories, what makes them tick, what we care about, why we care about it, and to let people express that and realize that is just so delightful to be a part of. So that's part of how I try to
I
live my values
agree.
every day.
I agree. And we might just learn something in the process.
I just learned something.
And
Yeah.
we certainly could all use a little kindness in this world today. And I think it's so simple to be kind. And it's a great place to start. And I love your comment about listening. I talk with a lot of people that I coach about their listening skills because I find so many people are listening and processing how they're going to respond instead of really listening. And what I find the key to it is they're not trusting their response. They don't trust that they're going to say something that's either meaningful or sound coherent when we should trust ourselves more to know that we're going to respond. Plus, you might just miss something while you're not listening very closely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to say not no to something in the business, a relationship in the business or something because it just wasn't aligned?
With values? Oh,
Yes.
yeah. All the time. It used to feel hard. Now it feels very easy. I don't want to spend time pursuing an endeavor, working with, a prospect that's not going to be aligned to our values because it will consume so much emotional energy that it'll
Yes.
any other utility you might think is there.
Yeah, I think this is great wisdom for our viewers because sometimes we think we have to say yes, and the emotional and other energy that we spend on something that isn't aligned, I believe always comes back and we have to address it at some point because that alignment is going to show up. So I like this idea of just learning and doing it from the beginning.
Yeah.
So tell me, what impact have you made that you're most proud of? And I'm more interested in personally, not professionally. What impact have you
Yeah.
made?
Yeah. I'll just start with myself, because I don't think anyone should take for granted the value of the work we do on ourselves. I used to be a very depressed person, and was very socially isolated, as many, and I was a teenager, as many teenagers struggle with. And it was an intense struggle and a lot of, what we call cognitive behavioral therapy of training myself. And I had a huge impact on myself. And I regularly rate, was today a happy day? Was today a meaningful day? And, back then, 20 years ago, it was rare that I would have a day like that. And today, I've actually had like a 600-day streak recently where I didn't have a bad day.
Oh,
Um, and so 99% of the time I'm able to just make each day count. And that's such a gift that I've given to myself. And as far as impact on other people, I hope I have been able to influence other people. I'm fortunate to have family, and so hopefully influence my family, parents, spouse, children, siblings in that way. And fortunate to have a big network through Sentinel and outside of Sentinel, where try to set an example for people of, yeah, be yourself, be honest with yourself, take care of yourself, spend time with your family, spend time on yourself. And if on the theory that one, everyone should be free to be their best self and their authentic self, and two, that from even just a narrow business perspective, for all the people I've gotten to see grow up through Sentinel and improve through Sentinel, so many people have, dozens and dozens have shared such kind words with me of, at Sentinel I was able to, be myself in a way I hadn't been, and able to improve myself, and in my interpersonal relationships with parents, siblings, spouses, children. So I have had a small role in lots of people's lives, and that's, far and away the most important impact on humans I've had directly.
yes, yes. And may you have many more happy days. We come here and I happen to believe we're a unique expression. There's only one of us and we're all we've got. And so I think and at least in this body, there is a limit to how long we're going to be in it. And The older I get, as I recall it, the light gets closer. So doing everything I can do to make the most of each day. And I love hearing you say that. It's very inspiring to our viewers today. Tell me this. How do you define success beyond metrics?
Yeah. I mean, for me, success is accomplishing my mission in life, which is to improve kindness and, moral behavior in the world, and, obviously focus on myself and do what I can to help others beyond that. And as far as how to measure that, the older I get, the simpler it seems, which is every single interaction is an opportunity. Yeah, I used to try to make each day positive or each day contribute something. Then I tried to make each hour contribute something. Now I try to make every 5 minutes contribute something positive. And it's all our little interactions, as the saying goes, the little things are the big things. And so I measure success really 5 minutes at a time. And as far as my true success and professional success can put lots of metrics too, but matters far less to me than in every given 5 minute period. Am I increasing the good in the world? Or am I not?
Yes, 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 yes. How do you navigate pushback, whether it's from inside the company or outside the company, when somebody pushes back on what you want to do or your idea? How do you manage that? What do you navigate?
Yeah. Hopefully I'm in a good, like, clear-headed mind space when that happens, and if so, then I try to approach it with curiosity. Like you said, every chance to learn something. So I love if someone disagrees with me, I really want to learn and understand it. If it turns out they disagree without having reasons I can learn from, which is a rare case, but if it happens, then okay, then I'm not learning anything. But 90% of the time, I get to learn something and take that information in. If it's a decision that I have to make, then I'll weigh it and make a decision and communicate why. And if it's a decision that I don't need to make, or somebody else should make instead, then great. I got to share my opinion and I understand theirs, and let's just move forward.
Yes, good, good. I think decision making is a team effort, not a individual. Sometimes we have to make decisions as leaders, but I always find if I listen to other people's ideas, my decisions are more informed and they're either validated or I learn something in the process and people are
Yeah.
heard. It's a win-win, I think. So tell me this, what's the boldest vision for your company in the next 5 years?
Yeah. I think the boldest vision for us that I don't think we'll get to in 5 years, but certainly I'd love to get to in 5 years, is really to be in every commercial building around the world, reducing enormous amounts of pollution. There's no technical reason we can't do that. There's no business, operational reason we can't do that. Um, it's all human psychology. Can we convince people to sign up and do something different, and change? And that is an enormously interesting and difficult problem. But I
Mm.
would, yeah, love to see us reducing pollution 25-30% in every building all around the world. That's what we built this company to do, and that's what we've been able to do in our, the 2,000 buildings we've worked in so far.
Well, may you grow and prosper. It's important work that you're doing for sure. So tell me, what shifts are going on in culture today that light you up?
Hmm. Shifts or change? It's fun questions. In so many ways, nothing ever changes, and in many ways, everything is always changing. Um, Certainly, the obvious one is AI shifts. I think are really, really fun and cool. And if boring work can be eliminated and new insights can be gathered, I think that's really fun. I'd say what lights me up the most is learning and watching other people learn, and I don't think anything comes to mind of some great unlock of changes in culture, but wherever people feel increased agency, wherever people feel like, in some ways the web continues to do this, just allow people to go take charge of their life, or go start something, or wherever people feel sparked, right, to, start, doing a bake sale and trying to be an entrepreneur that way. Whenever people take action, whenever someone sees some pothole or broken street light and actually does something about it, I know those aren't cultural changes, but those are culture. And when people act that way, that lights me up a lot. When people don't just envision something, but they take the steps to make it real in the world.
I love this. What are you most hopeful about for the world today?
Um, I have a very positive vision of what human beings can be. And we see throughout history that human beings fail to live up to that. And I see in my interactions with, I've been fortunate to travel all over the world and all over the country. People are just remarkably good. And so if the underlying, cellular organism of this great mass of 8 billion people, if each individual cell of that has these good instincts, that makes me very hopeful. Like there's no reason people can't listen. I have gone through that journey myself, and I'm on that journey where you don't listen very well, and then you practice and you get better. So it makes me very hopeful. Almost 99% of the interactions I have are just pleasant. People help
Yes.
each other. I'll give you a story. My wife found a piano that was being abandoned, and someone was looking for a new home, and she long wanted a piano, and pianos, as you know, are very heavy. So we need to get this piano about 10 blocks from its old home to our new home. And we optimistically thought, oh, maybe we'll be able to carry it. We'll load it in this rental car and move it. And we managed to get it out of this one apartment building onto the street. And then we had to get in the car, and it was obvious to me there's no way we're going to be able to lift it. Um, and even like as that thought is just crystallizing, I'm 3 seconds out the door, all of a sudden this stranger calls out, "Hey, would you like some help with that?" And he and these three women with him come and they help us get the piano in. And then two other random people say, "Oh, do you want some help with that?" And we get the piano loaded in and we carefully drive it 10 blocks. It doesn't fall out the back of the car, smashed a million pieces, and we make it. And the other end, other people are there, other strangers are there to help us get it in. And now we can have beautiful music in our home. So
Yes.
the kindness of strangers is ever present. And that makes me hopeful.
Yes, I share that hope with you. I find there's much more good than there is anything else out there. And when my interactions with people, I think if we could turn down some of the noise that goes on in the world today and remember that we're all far more the same than we'll ever be different, we would have much better progress, if nothing else, much more hope in the world. So tell me this. I'm interested to know this. What wisdom would you share with somebody that was just starting out on the founder journey? Or I have people that listen to this podcast that are thinking about creating their business or blazing trails of their own. What would you share with them as they get started on that journey?
Yeah. A number one thing I would share is if you're excited for it, just go for it. Don't hold back. Ignore everyone who doubts you. Listen to them and like appreciate it. But just if you're excited, just go for it because you learn so quickly by doing and failing, which you will inevitably do. So that would then be my second piece of advice is when you fail, as you will in 99.99% of cases, um, be excited to learn. I see it, be curious. It's fine to feel down, but as much as possible, be curious. And if you are maintain that fire and you have curiosity, odds are you will be able to succeed.
Yes, my whole business is about risk, resilience, and reinvention. And I think resilience to me and even risk are like a muscle. Like if we want to train our bicep or tricep, you can do the same thing with risk and resilience. And resilience just isn't about getting back up. It's about how can you grow from it? How can you learn from it? Because the only option is to keep moving. And sometimes that requires reinvention. I have one final question for you today. If your younger self were watching this podcast, what would you tell him?
I would tell him two things. I would tell him one, like your happy romantic vision of life is accurate and go savor it and keep like enjoy it and don't be hard on yourself. And number two, don't be afraid to pivot a lot and always listen to the voice in your head rather than the praise or the criticism of others. Trust that voice in your head that says whether you should do something different or stay the course. Um, those would be my two pieces of advice.
Wonderful. Raphael Rosen, it's been a delight to have you on Opening Pathways today. Please tell the viewers again about your company and where they can find you.
Yeah, company is Centinel, and you can find it at sentinelre.com or on LinkedIn. And what we are doing is helping solve the split incentive between landlords and tenants and unlocking billions of dollars in value for them and for the environment. And you can find me at raphaelcrosen.com.
Perfect. Thank you again for being here today. You shared a lot of wisdom with our viewers. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tom.
Yes. And to my viewers, this is Tom LeNoble. I'll see you next time.